I am Damian Tow from Brighton Energy, and I'm here to tell you about the PV and EV project that we did in 2019. We were successful in obtaining a next generation grant of £100,000 to trial this project. The aim of it was to investigate what level of electric vehicle charging usage would provide sufficient additional income to make community-owned solar PV viable after the feed-in tariff ended. And what we did, we ascertained which of our PV arrays were at the optimum location to attract EV users, and we trialled a variety of communications and engagement strategies to encourage them to charge with us. How did we do this? Well, we installed 7 kilowatt charge points at 11 locations that represented typical use cases to measure charging usage over the 2 years of the project. And who benefited? Well, the community energy sector benefited from the research undertaken and the intelligence gathered. The local community also benefited directly from subsidised electricity and from improved air quality. And when did we do this? Well, we installed the first charge points in spring 2021 and added more locations until the end of the trial in spring 2022. Our first charge points are now more than 3 years old, and we've extensive usage data over that 3-year period. And why did we do this? Well, by identifying that EV charging revenue can contribute to making community-owned renewables viable again, we can support the next phase of community energy growth and thus enable local benefit delivery. This slide just shows the flow of information around EV charging project, and it's based on charging at the University of Brighton, where we installed 3 EV charging points for staff and student usage. So what was ambitious and exciting and not really business as usual for community energy organisations about this project? Well, the project was unusual as it was about trialling EV charging to enable both, well not both, but post-subsidy economic viability of community renewables. So since the feed-in tariff ended, how can we ensure that the business case for community-owned renewables stacks up? And this was one of the innovations that we were trialling as part of the next generation project, to see that if adding EV charge points to PV arrays in particular would make the business case more financially viable. It's also about locally owned community infrastructure with the income recycled locally. The benefit of capacity building of community energy. A further evolution may be also community electric buses or EV car clubs that we're starting to see spring up all over the country. Improved community cohesion due to bringing EV drivers to a community or leisure centre. I know in Sussex there's a Facebook group of Sussex EV drivers, and they even have meetups at different locations, and we'll bring a group of drivers, maybe 20 to 30 vehicles, to a restaurant, a leisure location, a venue, which will bring some revenue to that venue and create a buzz all about EVs. Improve local grid resilience. So we didn't end up including batteries in our project in the end, but if there are local storage and generation of electricity, will take pressure off the grid. Also, I guess what was ambitious about the project was that we created a business case, financial models, and decision-making tools for other community energy businesses interested in EV charging. And if you get in touch with me after this presentation, I can tell you where to get hold of those. We can share them. This shows a map of some of the locations at the University of Brighton where we put charge points. So in what ways was the project successful? Well, we installed charge points across 11 different public and private locations, which covered a lot of use cases. We developed lease and license agreements for charge points hosting that are available to the community energy sector. We conducted surveys with key stakeholders such as existing and potential EV drivers to understand their needs. The viability of charge point investment was also found to be very location specific. Depends on site installation costs, levels of usage, and competition from any free charge points in the vicinity. But we did find that in the right locations, EV charge points can add to the viability of solar PV or other renewable installations. Charge points can pay back in less than 10 years. We're finding now, depending on the location and the usage. But the key things are, as you might expect, regular usage by EV drivers, low installation costs, basically don't dig up too much tarmac or concrete because that costs lots of money, and low competition from mainstream mainstream charge point providers, so rural locations are quite useful. There's a picture of one of our charge points, 7 kilowatt pod point. What ways was it challenging? Well, we had to create bespoke lease and license agreements for EV charge point leasing, as there weren't standard ones available. We ran the project through COVID lockdowns when access to the charge points and their usage was low. So we had to extrapolate charge point data because of this. We had to manage expectations about trialing an innovation that is loss making to begin with, but will later deliver community benefit. We've also managed charge points during a period of high electricity prices, which has meant sometimes we've had to increase the charging fee to an unattractive level, because if we kept the charging fee low, because the grid electricity price has gone up, sometimes they'd be loss making. Also, we had to negotiate lease and license agreements with sites that extended project timescales significantly. Key lessons that other similar projects might want to think about. Well, the three key lessons really for charge point siting are location, location, location. Be close to electricity connections and minimize groundworks. Price, it varies quite widely across suppliers and there are deals to be done. Also, using local electricians rather than a national firm can be much more viable financially. Usage, it's worth modelling potential usage at locations to maximise return on investment and avoid stranded assets. Also, benchmark other cities and communities. Use research from places with more advanced EV infrastructure to inform where to site your chargers, and use something like ZapMap for locations. Understand the factors for higher EV usage and where drivers prefer to charge. Obtain usage and availability data from existing charge points where possible to help decisions on where to site your community charge points. Investigate competitions and partnerships. Check plans of charging hub operators. So basically, you don't want to put in a community charge point where large retailers or companies like GridServe are putting in charging hubs. And learn from and partner with organisations with similar business models like Charge My Street. And that's me. We had to do a quick rundown of this project, so I will complete now, but there's my email address if you want to ask me any questions. Many thanks.